10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 387. Hey, everybody, welcome back to episode 387 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. This week, we're going to take one more look at Lydian over an awesome Wayne Shorter tune, Yes or No. And we're going to talk about some really cool applications for the Lydian sound in the form of triad pairs. So you're definitely going to want to stick around for that. Before we jump into the episode, just want to remind everybody this is a listener-supported podcast, which means we don't do any advertisements on the show. Instead, we rely on listeners just like you that get something out of this podcast each and every week. And we do that in the form of a small monthly donation, and we use the Patreon platform for that. So if you want to know the details and join up to be a part of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson family, you can simply go to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners, or go to patreon.com and search for the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. Wanted to give a quick shout out to some new patrons this week. Thank you to our new $5 members, TL, Paul, Jeff, and Chad. And thank you to our new $3 members, William, Andres, and Dominic. Thank you guys so much for joining up to be a member of the family and for supporting this podcast. Again, if you want more information and to join up yourself, you can go to 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners, or go to patreon.com and search for our podcast. All right, without further ado, let's get into this week's episode. Okay, so last week we talked about some real-world applications of the Lydian sound over Bernie's tune, and one particular place where we could use Lydian dominant. And this week we are going to take a look at one of my favorite Wayne Shorter compositions, Yes or No. And we are going to look at, in particular, the first 8 bars, which is just one of the best places to start using this Lydian sound. And we are going to do it in the form of triad pairs. So if we look at the first 4 measures, the first chord of Yes or No, what we see is a concert D7 sus4 chord, which is that sound right there. Now, we're not going to use Lydian over this dominant 7 sus chord, but you're going to see how it's going to be similar to our thinking on Lydian. So I want to talk about a particular triad pair that I think is really, really awesome over a dominant sus4 chord. So all you would do is you would think about a major triad on the root, which in this case would be D major. And then think about the major triad a whole step down from that. So the one that's based off of that flatted 7th. So that would be C major. And what you will hear is that it's a really, really incredible sound. Okay, really, really nice sound with those 2 triads. Okay, so how does this get into a Lydian sound? Well, our next chord is that sus chord actually goes from D7 sus4 to a regular old D major 7th chord. So then we hear this sound. And it's a really, really cool transition. So it goes from here up to here. And I love that. Wayne Shorter is just such a genius for going from that sus sound to the major sound. And what we are going to use is one of our triad pairs that we talked about over this that sort of denotes the Lydian sound. So we want to get that sharp 11 in there somewhere, right? Because that's sort of the characteristic sound of Lydian. So what we're going to do over that D major 7 chord is we're going to use a D major triad again. But now we're going to use an E major triad along with that. And you could hear that G sharp, that is the 3rd of the E major chord, is what's giving us our Lydian sound. So again, over D7 sus, we're going to use D major, C major. And then over D major 7, we're going to use D major and E major. And it's one of my favorite sounds to use over this chord because the fact that we are using two triads a whole step apart, two major triads a whole step apart over the sus chord, and then we are simply just changing the triad pair, but we're keeping them as two triads that are a whole step apart, mean that we get a really, really interesting sound over the first 8 bars of this tune. And of course, it sort of fits into our discussion of Lydian because, of course, we are using a Lydian-based triad pair for that D major 7 chord. So let's check out what it sounds like maybe in time, just messing around a little bit on the piano. You guys know I'm not the best pianist in the world, but I want you to just hear some of the possibilities. So I'm going to do it kind of out of time, but I want you to wrap your ears around this sound. So isn't it awesome? Let's do that one more time. I think you would agree that that's just a really, really interesting way to go about dealing with these first 2 chords. And of course, there's a ton of other interesting stuff that we can do, but it's all about having options, right? That's what we want in our playing is we want to have access to a whole bunch of different sounds so that we're not locked into only one way of playing it, although this way of playing it is pretty cool. And the way that it relates to Lydian is over that second chord, the only way we can get to that triad pair of D major and E major is by studying the Lydian mode. And you want to be on the lookout for places where this stuff can work if you want to use Lydian in your solos. This is a perfect place. Last week we talked about another perfect place. So you want to start to be on the lookout for opportunities like this where the sort of theory and the sound of the tune really lends itself to the sound of that sharp 11. So what I've done for all the patrons this week is I've prepared just a little excerpt over the first 2 A's of this tune, and that is, heavily reliant on these 2 chords, that sus chord going to the major 7th chord, and it's all based off of those triad pairs. So obviously in the other parts of the A sections, there's other material, but I really want you to zoom in on the first 8 bars of each one of the A sections, and you can study those if you have access to the PDF, and you can sort of tear that apart and then start playing it over this tune. So let's check out the excerpt of the first 2 A sections. And this is a weird tune. It actually has 14 bar A sections. So we've got the first 8 is going to be those 2 chords. And then we have 6 more bars. So it's a little bit of a funky tune, but you'll be able to wrap your ears around it the more and more that you practice over this tune. And I highly recommend learning this tune. Again, it's one of my favorites. So let's check out the little mini etude that I've prepared for you over this and really listen for those triad pairs to change between concert C, concert D to concert D, concert E, and really note how that sounds and how it sort of fits over the harmony that's happening underneath it. Now, of course, this tune is usually played at a really fast tempo, but for purposes of illustration here, we're going to be doing it at a slightly slower tempo so that you can a little more properly hear what's going on. And also, if you're one of the Patreon members that gets the backing track, it'll be a good tempo to get started with this tune. That's not going to absolutely kill you. So here is the little excerpt. All right, so there you have it. Good luck with this stuff. Let me know if you have any questions. But again, this is just another real world opportunity to use some of these structures that I've shown you over the past couple of episodes and actually start to incorporate some of that Lydian playing into your solos. So good luck with everything. You're going to have to work on this for a while to really get used to it and, learn those triad pairs and become fluent with them. But once you do, they really can provide for some very cool sounds. So have fun. All right. We'll see you next week with another brand new episode. Hope everybody's staying safe and healthy out there as always. And we will talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.